Hey everybody, Riot Mort here with the patch 11.20 patch rundown. Normally I'd be joined by Riot Kent, the other designer on the live pod, but he's out having fun, taking a few days off. So you get me, we're going old school, solo Mortdog doing the patch rundown. Haven't done one of these in a long time, so let's see how it goes. So, I'm filming this as of Friday. The Reckoning Championship has begun, but it's not quite over yet, but it will be over. Which means we can kind of lighten up a little bit and add some more content, add some more, interesting flavor that isn't necessarily, need a lot of time for competitive edge, without, necessarily going full for fun randomness. And so that's kind of the goal of this patch is we're trying to balance a few things, but also add some spice so that the last month of the set isn't quite a drag. So let's dive into what we're adding. So, first off, all players will get a second Radiant Armory at 5-1, or 7-3 in Hyperroll. And so what this means is you can have 2 Radiant items. It is full random, so you'll just get a choice of 5, and then a choice of 5. It can be the same one, so you could have 2 Radiant Thieves Gloves, that is a possibility. And you can put them on the same character, so you can have a Radiant, i.e. Radiant Jeweled Gauntlet Lucian if you want, if you happen to hit those. That's totally possible. The idea here is this should add a lot of new strategic depth about, now you've got 2 very interesting decision points. Do you put them all on one carry but risk getting Zephyr? Do you spread them out? Does this make utility items more valuable? So really interested to see how this plays out, but should, again, change the meta quite a bit and add a very interesting dynamic. So pretty cool to see. Radiant Blessing. We are upping the chance of some of those more crazy Radiant Blessings from 10% to 18%, just making them a little bit more likely. So you should see these in about 1 every 5 or 6 games instead of 1 in every 10, something like that. In addition, very rarely we added some really crazy stuff that will very much change how the game plays. Now keep in mind, these are incredibly rare. The 8-item component Radiant Blessing is a 1 in 200 chance. The 2 Nico's Help plus 20 gold or 3 Force of Nature Radiant Blessing is a 1 in 500 chance, so you probably won't even see these anyway, but if you do, you'll have a pretty wild, memorable game, and I think that'll be worth it, and so it'll be interesting to see how players react to these and how well they can adapt. So, should be a lot of fun, and again, should make the last month of the set a little more enjoyable. On the trait side, A-Bomb 4 and 5 continue to be something that isn't really worth investing in, so we're giving them a little bit more damage. So, again, just slight nudge here to make 4 and 5 a little bit better. Forgotten 6 and 8 have been really, really strong if you can pull them off. They are hard to pull off, but once you do, they're kind of oppressive. So we want to keep them strong, just not quite as oppressive, and so 6 Forgotten gets a 10 AD and AP nerf, and then 8 Forgotten gets a 50, but it's still 150 AD and AP plus 10% per stack. I'm not worried about 8 Forgotten not still being strong, but it is getting brought down just a little bit. Sentinel. For the last month, Sentinel isn't going to be a free top 4 anymore. Sentinel in the early game is losing 5% attack speed per stack, so your early game won't quite be as dominant with a 3 Sentinel. Still should be pretty strong. It's not a huge nerf. And then 6 Sentinel is losing 10% attack speed and 100 off its shield. I don't think this is going to do a massive nerf or anything like that, but it should mean you actually need to upgrade your Sentinels, have a strong Lucian, and not just necessarily get that free top 4. I think Sentinel's kind of been allowed to run free a little long, and so gets a slight adjustment here. Skirmisher, at this point we've talked about this trait for a lot. Skirmisher just really struggles other than the 3 in the early game. And even then, it's not that great. It's been more powered up by Sentinel. So with the nerf to 3 Sentinel, we're putting some of that power back in Skirmisher and letting 6 and 9 Skirmisher be a little stronger. So hopefully that can open up some more Skirmisher options, and maybe we see Jax come back, maybe we see Nidalee do well, things like that. So yeah, Skirmisher a little bit better. Draconic, for those of you that love Draconic, and I'll be honest, of all the changes, this is probably the riskiest, but it's not that risky. Basically, all we did was we upped the chances of the high roll eggs. So for Draconic 3, that's a 4-turn egg, and for Draconic 5, that's a 5-turn egg. All we did was double their odds. That's it. So all this average value of the egg stuff, that's all coming from the fact that now you get double the high roll eggs. And so if you play Draconic, you should be a little more likely to see some of those high roll eggs and have those exciting moments. And then I also added in one more 5-turn egg, that if you get it, it happens to have a Force of Nature, 2 item components, and 3 Heimerdingers, instantly giving you a 2-star Heimerdinger. And that is a 20% chance inside the 5-turn egg. So should add, for again, some more exciting moments to have if you happen to get that early Draconic, maybe get that early Draconic 5. Should be cool. Should make Draconic a little easier to play, a little more fun to play as well. Yasuo. Yasuo has been secretly a very, very strong champ. There are tons of variations on how to play this guy. He's the strongest 3-cost in the game by far. If you get a Yasuo too early, you can just dominate the early and mid game. And so he's losing a bit of his attack speed. But yeah, whether it be Cavalier Yasuo, Assassin Yasuo, there's just so many ways to play this guy. Radiant blue buff. He's also one of the biggest benefactors of the double Radiant item. There are a lot of versions of him that run 2 Radiant items that are just damn near unstoppable. So we did have to bring Yasuo down just a little bit. And it's been very fascinating because Yasuo continues to be this champion that everyone thought was going to be unplayable in the mid set, and yet all we've had to do is nerf this guy. So, pretty interesting to see. Okay, small changes. Hellion 6. Obviously, with the combination of Kled comps, Tristana comps, things like that, Hellion 6 just overperformed a little bit. So we are bringing down Hellion 6 just 5%, just a slight nudge. Spellweaver 6, similar story. If you get Spellweaver 6, the amount of damage your team does is just insanity. It'll still be good, just little less insanity. Maybe now you actually have to upgrade your Spellweavers and not just run a 1-star Fiddlesticks that's going to blow up the entire enemy team. So, slight nerf there. On the champion side, this is the stuff that, if you watch the postmortem, I had talked about we considered B patching. But basically, a lot of the 1-star 1-cost 3 stars are a little stronger than we'd like, just a little. We don't mind them being playable. If anything, we're happy that they're playable, but they're just a little overbearing. So Callista gets a bit of a nerf at 3-star. Kha'Zix gets a bit of a nerf at 3-star. Vayne gets a bit of a nerf at 2 and 3-star. And then Kled loses 5 AD, kind of hitting him at all levels. So should all go down in power quite a bit. And then Vladimir is the other one. Vladimir's kind of been underperforming. So we're just giving him a little bit of HP to maybe keep himself alive a little longer, get a few more casts off, open up some more early renewer comps, things like that. So hopefully that diversifies the early game a little bit and makes the reroll comps not quite as dominant. On the 2-cost side, this brand change, I'm going to be honest with you, I hate that we have to make this change because now people might contest me for my brand, and I don't want them to. I love brand. It's my favorite champ to play in the game. But according to the data, he's underperforming. So gets a very small buff at 1 and 2-star. And then at 3-star, he actually looked like he was the worst 2-cost in the game. So giving him a pretty substantial buff that if he casts on somebody at 3-star, they're going to die eventually. It'll still take time, but this should be a pretty significant buff to like a brand reroll comp if you want to try it. I'll be honest with you. Please don't. Just stay away from my brand. Let me have it. But, you know. Soraka. Soraka had a really good idea from Dasik that I thought was pretty legit, so I wanted to implement it. And it's that early renewer really kind of struggles, because if you have a Vlad and Soraka, and you get like a Soraka 1-star, you can't really do much with it, because Soraka kind of suffers. So I kind of agreed with that and decided to power shift away from 3-star, but into 1-star. So that way, if you do get like an early Vlad 2 plus Soraka 1, it should be a little bit more playable. That being said, if you have an easier earlier game, you've got to have a harder late game, and so we're just taking a little bit of power out of Soraka there. Should keep it pretty balanced. On the 3-cost side, Misfortune 3, little too strong. Just nudging that a little bit. Nocturne, this is interesting because Nocturne 1 and 2 still look like terrible in the data. Nocturne 3 does okay. If you get a Nocturne 1 out of a box, you're like, do I run this? It's not even that great, which isn't good for a 3-cost. So we're buffing Nocturne 1 quite a bit, Nocturne 2 a little bit, and Nocturne 3 not at all. What's interesting about these numbers is now if you look at Nocturne's spell, he basically has 0 scaling. So it definitely makes him a unique champ in TFT history in that he has 0 spell scaling at all throughout his entire kit. Obviously, he levels up and gets HP and AD, which matters, but pretty fascinating to see. Nunu 3. Nunu 3 is a very secretly, maybe not so secret, good champion that when you get it, just kind of deletes, 3, maybe 4 of the enemy units before he dies. Just toning that down a little bit. He'll still do that. He'll still be powerful. But again, kind of want to just nudge that down a little bit. On the 4-cost side, the Draven rework, this should be green, by the way, is a buff, not a nerf. But Draven getting a little bit of love, a little bit of AD. Again, we just really want him to be an exciting, risky carry. So we're just nudging him up a bit. Fiddlesticks, this isn't meant to be a huge power spike, but basically if you don't have a lot of mana items on this champ or he's not 2-star, it's very difficult to make Fiddlesticks cast. So we're trying to up that a little bit so that Fiddlesticks is just a little bit more likely to cast. You don't necessarily have to have like a Radiant Frozen Heart or be 2-star that he might actually cast in other cases. Because Fiddlesticks is meant to be a 4-cost carry, and right now people are basically only considering it if you have a Redeemed or Spellweaver Spatula. So hopefully this opens up a little bit more options in our final stretch. On the 5-cost side, Akshan 2, very, very powerful champion. Little too powerful. So we're just lowering his spell attack speed a tiny bit. Should still be good. I'm not worried about Akshan being terrible. And then a for fun change. If you get a 3-star Viego, he's more powerful now. Not going to tell you how. I'm sure you can figure it out. But 3-star Viego, very good. Ruin King. Woohoo! Finally, the last change. On the Radiance item side, the lowest performing item right now is Radiant Quicksilver. It has a few good use cases. I've seen it used on Kled, Jax, Draven. But it'll be even better now. I get 5% more attack speed. Just a very slight nudge to try to make it not quite the worst Radiant item in the game. So, yeah. That is it. That is it for the patch changes. The big thing here to talk about is the fact that this is the second to last patch of Reckoning and Dawn of Heroes. But we are shipping these sort of more interesting changes one patch early so that those of you that want to play the PBE and check out the next set don't necessarily miss the for fun changes as well. And again, I call them for fun changes because we are trying to add fun to the game, but I still think they add also interesting decisions. They'll have a high skill cap, and we'll have to see who can really master those to end the season at like the highest ranks. So after this, there's one more patch, but I'll be honest with you, it's going to be very, very little. We'll do any balance adjustments we need to based on the whole double Radiant item thing, but other than that, it's not going to be a lot because we are going to be focused on the next set. It's almost here. I'm recording this as of October 1st. That's just a little over 2 weeks to go, so should be pretty exciting. All right, that's going to do it for this patch. I hope you guys have fun with all the stuff as it comes out on Wednesday. So yeah, should be a lot of fun. Until then, that's it from me. Take it easy.